let me give you a bit of a context. It's almost 10 years now since the Institute of Medicine's landmark study on food marketing and the diets of children and youth. That came out in 2006 and was a follow-up to the original 2004 report regarding the rise of childhood obesity in the United States. In that original report in 2004, the IOM was able to look at a whole variety of factors that seemed to be influencing that crisis. What was going on in the family, for one, I should mention, given this conference, but also the built environment, what kind of schools and nutritional lunches were available through schools, what kind of exercise programs children were engaging in. But the one area that the original report did not look at was food marketing. And they chose not to do that because they thought it was too big a topic to take on in the context of all of the other factors influencing childhood obesity. So in 2005, Congress requested of the Institute of Medicine to put together a panel to specifically study food marketing and its role in the childhood obesity crisis. That study from the IOM in 2006 has been a landmark study for a variety of reasons. One, it was the most systematic review of the literature at the time on the relationship between food marketing, which, by the way, was primarily television advertising. We were 10 years ago when the web and apps and other online environments really hadn't grown yet. But that study looked at 200 studies that had been established in the literature on the relationship between food marketing and children's food choices, food preferences, their actual diets, and adiposity. Was it related to fatness? One of the things that the study also identified was the incredible out-of-whack kinds of foods that are being marketed to children and what was problematic in the children's diets. In short, the study identified that children's diets over the previous 20 years had become higher in fat, higher in salt, higher in sugar, and had too many calories. And lo and behold, if you content analyzed the marketing on Saturday mornings and elsewhere through the week of products that were being marketed to children, they mirrored that. They were high in fat, high in sugar, high in salt, high in calories, and low in the kinds of nutritional products, nutritional aspects that children needed. So that when the study committee then examined the relationship between this kind of television marketing, TV advertising, and children's own food preferences, they found a strong relationship. That TV marketing from these 200 studies that they had evaluated seemed to be related not only to children's food preferences, food choices, their actual diets, what they ate in studies, and adiposity, particularly for children under 12. That report became a rallying cry about the role of food marketing and its contribution to the childhood obesity crisis. Shortly after the release of that report, it actually came out in December of 2005. I was a member of that study committee. But shortly after the release of that report, the food industry began to respond with a major self-regulatory event. They established the Children's Food and Beverage Advertising Initiative. And this advertising initiative, CFBAI for short, brought together originally about 12 food marketers that represented around half of all the companies marketing to children on television. That group has grown to now be 18 food marketers and fast food chains as well. But what's important about the CFBAI is that the CFBAI pledged to try to do better in the kinds of foods that it would market to children. And most importantly, and here I do research at the nexus of public policy, food, or public policy, media, and children's development. It's really a dance between industry and advocates and the regulatory agencies. Advocates want more regulation, the industry wants less regulation, and regulators, if they pressure enough, can get the industry to do more. That was precisely what has happened over the last 10 years with CFBAI. Their original guidelines of what to market to children were not very strong. They were all over the map from company to company. They weren't consistent, so if I mostly had sugared cereals, I'd be really good on my salt that I wouldn't have in my products, but if I was a marketer promoting chips to children, I was much better on sugar than I was on salt. So all of the self-regulatory initiatives at the early stages were very much self-serving on the part of industry. But pressure from the regulators and pressure from advocates changed that. And over time, there's been a consistent model of what constitutes healthy foods for children and a consistent model of pressuring the industry and the self-regulatory group to take much more seriously how they market to children and what they market, such that we know much more the characteristics of marketing that seems to be most successful with children, media characters being one of those, but also that advert games are popular online, particularly with boys, and that there's been a lot of features of unhealthy foods that have been advertised. Well, in 2013, in the latest round of the CFBAI policy discussions, CFBAI, this came after a 2012, by the way, FTC conference about food marketing and childhood obesity. But in 2013, the CFBAI companies pledged that they would only market their healthier foods to children. And most importantly, what we know about the importance of media characters in influencing children's choices and desires for the products being marketed to them, the CFBAI companies agreed that after 2013, starting in 2014, they would not use their media characters to market unhealthy foods. They would only use media characters to market healthy foods to children. I have a few discussions here of what we know about the importance of media characters, particularly for children under the age of about 6 or 8, that media characters seem to be important in influencing children's diets and their choices. We know that children identify with these media characters. They form something that my colleague Sandy Calvert from Georgetown University calls parasocial relationships. They want to be like these media characters. They want to do the same things that the media characters do. And they most especially want to eat the products that those media characters are promoting. We also know from research on characters, primarily out of the literature on Sesame Street and other educational television shows, that children generally prefer same-sex characters at these young ages. Girls want to watch girls, boys want to watch boys, but sometimes girls will watch boys too. In fact, the power of the male arises very early in children's reactions to television. So when the CFBAI company said in 2013 that they would only use their media characters to promote more healthy products for children, that became an ideal context for research. And my colleagues and I at our research lab at Northwestern and with Sandy Calvert at Georgetown, we have funding from the National Science Foundation to actually examine whether the food companies are going to be holding to their pledges. And so we have three research aims in this project that we're doing. We're interested in understanding what the scope of marketing foods to children is today, as opposed to what it was in 2006 when it was primarily TV advertising. We want to know what's being marketed online, on websites, and in apps. We are curious to find out whether the CFBAI food marketers will hold to their 2013 pledges to market only healthier foods for children, and if they'll do so, as they say, by using their media characters to only promote these healthier foods. And we're curious about how prevalent media characters are today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the beginning stages of this research project. We went into the field and collected all advertising and marketing features from advertisements, food-branded websites, and apps for the CFBAI and non-CFBAI companies. In particular, we examined 132 television advertisements, 171 instances of marketing on websites, and 43 instances of marketing with food-branded apps. The specific sample included about 100 brands produced by the CFBAI companies. They don't just have one brand. They have multiple brands out there if you're Kraft, for instance, or if you're Mars. And 50 non-CFBAI companies. And I should point out that we found the overwhelming number of websites and apps were for the CFBAI companies, not for the non-CFBAI companies. We collected our data, everything we could for all of these brands, in, Heather, remind me, late 2013. And we decided, my graduate student, Heather Zupancic, who's working on this, is sitting in the back. And we decided to give the companies a year, over 2014, to get themselves organized. And we are planning on going back to collect the data again to see what's happened now that the pledges are into effect. And we're collecting data on all these websites and apps and marketers this fall. So we'll have a comparison before the pledges went into effect and after the pledges went into effect. But today what I'll be able to talk about is only from the 2013 data before the pledges went into effect. What we coded on these websites and the marketers was what kind of character was involved. Was it a licensed character? Was it a human spokes character? Was it a product mascot? And these do vary. A licensed character is someone like Dora the Explorer, who is part of a television show, and the owners of that show get fees, license fees, for using her image in whatever foods that are marketed. Human spokes characters are more like when you have a gymnast like Gabby Douglas, or you have some famous actor or sports person who speaks for the product. It's sort of having a hero or heroine on the front of a Wheaties box. And finally, our product mascots, which frankly are not being examined. They're food-branded characters like Lucky the Leprechaun of Lucky Charms, or perhaps the best known for many, many years, Tony the Tiger, who gives you, what is that cereal? Thank you. Thank you. In addition to coding all these aspects of the foods, the marketing, we also tried to get an estimate of the food quality. And so what we ended up measuring is energy density. It's a measure of nutritional value. Those of you who are nutrition scientists in the room, I don't have to tell you that, but for others, I'll try to provide it for you. We tabulated the energy density of each of the promoted food products based on the nutritional information available on the company's website. The energy density is equal to a food item's calories divided by its weight in grams. In a sense, it's a metric of how filling food items are. Foods low in energy density will cause people to feel fuller without adding calories to their diets. Therefore, foods low in ED are considered healthier and should make up a large portion of people's caloric intake. People should only rarely eat foods with ED above 4, is what we were told, meaning that over half of the foods, if you can see, in our sample, since the mean energy density for the sample of all the products that we were looking at is over 4.4. Basically, these are not particularly healthy foods, and they are not foods that are being marketed that are consistent with a healthful diet. So let me tell you what else we found out. We were curious in particular about how the food marketers before the pledges were using characters. And as you can see, the percentage of marketing instances on television, on the web, and in apps have a lot of media or spokespeople characters. That tends to be the model of how foods and beverages are marketed to children. Also, if you look at the difference between a licensed character, like a Dora the Explorer, a spokes character, like whoever is speaking for Wheaties at the moment, whoever the big sportsman is, or a product mascot. And one of the things you notice is that across the different media contexts, that product mascots are very high in being used. And so a marketer wants to associate a product mascot with their product so that children will associate that media character with that product. I should point out that because some of the advertisements featured more than one type of media character, these numbers don't always add up to 100. When we looked at the relationship between energy density and the kinds of characters that are used to promote these food products, we found that there was indeed a relationship, that product mascots promote more obesogenic foods than do license or spokes characters. And as you can see, the red line, which is product mascots, particularly for the web, is the average energy density was 4.18, which is above 4 and quite high. And that product mascot, did I do that already? Let me see where I am. Yeah, that product mascots definitely seem to be related with these more high energy density products. We also looked at the gender of the media characters, and we found that across the three different media delivery systems, television, web, and apps, that there was increasingly mixed genders available in these foods that are in these marketing characteristics, that it wasn't just boys or girls, males or females, but there was more likely to be both males and females available for the character, so that both boys and girls in the audience would have somebody to identify with as they watch these advertisements or marketing entities. I don't know what to call them when they're apps, but they are like advertisements. We also found that male characters promoted more obesogenic foods, that male characters seemed to have higher, when they were present, seemed to have higher ED scores than when female characters or mixed gender characters were present. And what we essentially concluded is that before the pledges have gone into effect, that there hadn't really been much change from the 2006 report, that we still have foods that are being marketed to children as late as 2013 that tend to be the less healthy foods, and that one of the major mechanisms for doing this has been via media characters. And so the fact that the self-regulatory agency, CFBAI, wants to regulate and to promise not to promote and use media characters in their marketing to children is something that is a good thing, and we hope that they hold to their pledges. We found characters, especially product characters, are highly prevalent across the child-targeted food marketing environment. We'll be curious to see if that will continue to be the case in 2015. We're going back this fall to collect data on all these companies again to see how many changes there are. We found that these product characters do tend to promote more obesogenic foods, and that we found that the gender composition of characters, while it varied somewhat by platform, male characters definitely dominate in this arena, and that they tend to be associated with more obesogenic foods. And as I said, in talking about the dance that goes on between regulators and advocates and the industry, it's quite clear that monitoring how the industry is performing and conducting ongoing research to see if the industry is holding to their pledges will be important in trying to reduce the negative effects of food marketing on this childhood obesity crisis. I'd like to acknowledge both the National Science Foundation grants and the variety of postdocs and doctoral students who are listed here who've worked on this project in our lab. And with that, I say thank you.